going on, everyone? Welcome back to Fix It Garage and another awesome video that we got lined up for you guys today. Today we are working on a 2022, yes, a brand spanking new car, Subaru Impreza Sport wagon, the 5-door wagon Subaru Impreza. What are we going to be doing? We're going to be lowering this thing. We're going to be lowering it 1 inch in the front, 1.25 inches in the rear on some RSR springs. We've also got some SPC rear arms to give it more camber adjustment so we can make the wheels that he's got fit and have that nice looking stance. Before we get started, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this 2022 Subaru Impreza Sport. It's not very often we get to work on a brand new car here at Fix It Garage, so it was a really neat opportunity to be able to do a lowering kit on this 2022 Impreza. The kit that we're using is a RSR lowering kit. It is springs front and rear, which will lower the car about 1 inch in the front and 1.25 inches in the rear, so the car loses that raked look that it has from the factory. This will give it a more even level look, and it'll bring it down a little bit close to the ground and give it that nice looking stance that the owner is going for. All right, so right off the bat, we're gonna start taking the front end apart. It is not super hard. You've got 3 bolts up top and you've got 2 on the bottom of the strut. I recommend supporting the brake with a floor jack so the knuckle and hub assembly don't fall over and pull the axle out. Last thing you wanna do is pull the axle out of the socket, and that just makes it a pain to deal with. So support the brake with a jack, undo the 2 bolts. Remember what went where. The factory camber bolt goes up top, and the bottom is the standard bolt. Pulling it off, not that bad. These are pretty easy struts to get out, pretty basic, super simple. You pull them, all the bolts out, you can go ahead and slide it down and pull the strut out. Oh, hey guys. Real quick, while you guys are seeing us compress this spring on this front strut, the tool that we are using right now can be a very dangerous spring compressor. If you're using it, please be careful. These things can fail and cause the spring and strut assemblies to go shooting in opposite directions, and they can actually hurt you. I highly recommend that these are only used by professionals that know what they're doing, just because they are a riskier spring compressor. There's a little level of sketch when you're using, because there's nothing, it's just 2 things you're using to compress the spring. That's just my 2 cents. And also, if you're gonna buy one of these style spring compressors, do not buy cheap ones. Spend the money and get a proper, good version of this, because the last thing you want for it to do is to fail when you're in the middle of compressing your springs. All right, so now we got the spring compressed, we can go ahead and take the spring compressor off, and we can take our new spring and slide it on the strut, compress the spring, and put the strut back together. Once we get the strut reassembled, we can go ahead and put it back in the car. This side's done. Let's go ahead and knock out the other front side real quick. Moving on to the rear of the car, we've got 2 upper shock bolts that are underneath some covers, and we've got 1 bolt on the lower control arm, which that lower control arm we are replacing with an SPC arm. So we're going to unbolt the lower control arm 2 bolts and the 2 shock bolts, and we can remove the lower control arm and the shock at the same time. When you're doing this normally, if you're not replacing the arm, you'll usually have to have a friend or a pry bar to pry down on the assembly. Once you unbolt the shock in order to get it out, you're going to have to pry down and push down to get it out from up inside the shock tower, and you can remove it. But now that we got it out, we're going to go ahead and compress that spring. Again, be very careful when you compress it so you do not hurt yourself. We're gonna compress the spring, take the spring out, and we're going to go put our new RSR spring in. When we were installing these new RSR springs in the rear that have the 1.25 inch lowering on them, we found that we didn't need the spring compressor. We could just push on it and the other person would start the nut and we could install that rear spring. That just shows the difference in the height from the new to the old springs. And now it's time to put everything back in the car. So we're gonna put that strut assembly in, and then we're gonna install that brand new SPC lower control arm. That lower control arm will give us more camber adjustment in the rear, and it will also actually add a little bit more toe adjustment if we need it. Again, allowing us to get that very, very nice stance that we're going for with this car. It's gonna look good sitting still.
We keep dancing with the devil, but he doesn't have a back, no.
Just like that, we've got the driver's side all done. Let's move on over to the passenger side real quick. Oh man, that car looks so good after that little drop to the ground. Small little inch, an inch and a quarter in the rear, leveled out that car nice. It's got a nice looking, like it sits really good. It's got a good stance, how it looks. It's the perfect ride height. I'm not a huge fan of those cambered out, slammed cars that sit an inch off the ground, you know, that they're just undrivable. This setup makes the car perfectly drivable, which is what the owner wants. They want to be able to drive this thing to the coast. They want to be able to take it everywhere, but have it look a little bit better, which this thing looks absolutely awesome sitting like that. I'm actually a pretty big fan of those Impreza Sport wagons. They look really good. And now with it a little inch lower, it looks even better. The owner's really happy with the car. The first thing he did after we were done here is he went off and he got himself a nice four-wheel alignment so all the wheels were pointing straight ahead, because when we were done, they were a little bit, you know, all over the place. But now they're all pointed straight ahead and he's able to drive that car and enjoy it. With that being said, I want to thank all of you for watching. If you like what you saw, don't forget to smash that like button. Leave me some comments and questions down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future Fix It Garage videos. Still have lots of cool things coming for the rest of the year. Looking forward to bringing it all for you guys to see. Before we end things off, I'm going to link down below the RSR springs, the SPC arms, some camber bolts, and also the Instagram for the car that we built. You guys can follow along with his build and see all the cool stuff that he's going to be doing moving forward in the future and all the cool adventures that that car goes on. But that is going to do it for today. I want to thank all of you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.